Lead, discover, develop, deliver. The Air Force Research Laboratory leads the discovery, development, and delivery of warfighting technologies for our air, space, and cyber forces. Our scientists, researchers, and professionals reimagine what's possible, creating tomorrow's technology today. This pursuit of innovation delivers solutions for our warfighters' urgent needs, creating innovative new capabilities. When others say it's impossible, we find a way. We are the Air Force Research Laboratory.
Hello, folks. Welcome to AFRL's live virtual town hall. You've been excited for it, and it's finally here. I'm very excited to introduce your hosts today, AFRL Commander, Brigadier General Heather Pringle, and Chief Master Sergeant Kennon Arnold, our Command Chief. Today, they'll be answering questions sent in from around the enterprise surrounding COVID-19, 2030 implementation, and more. So without further ado, I'll open the floor to General Pringle for opening remarks.
Hey, good morning, AFRL. It's great to have you here today. Thanks for joining us today. Chief Arnold and I are really excited to talk to you. We thought it was really important to talk about what our priorities are for this amazing research laboratory that we have and this amazing mission that we get to do each and every day. But we're also looking forward to answering your questions. So bring it at us, and we're really excited to hear what's on your mind. And before we get to your questions, I hope you don't mind that I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself, do a special shout out, and tell you about what our priorities are for the Air Force Research Lab. So first, just a little bit about me. I grew up in a small town in Idaho, and a shout out to Dad. He's watching right now there, and they live on Main Street, Mom and Dad, so really fortunate to have had such a wonderful upbringing by them in Idaho. And also, I have 3 kids. 2 are adult children, graduates of college, and we have a 9 soon-to-be 10-year-old named Bryce, and a shout out to Bryce as well, who's watching. So he's excited to start school next week and trying to figure out how we're going to do this in a COVID environment. And I know that's on all of your minds as well. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I'll tell you, coming here to the Air Force Research Lab, it's absolutely a dream come true. And I love what this mission is, to lead, discover, develop, and deliver. That's so amazing. Science, technology, and innovation for the warfighter. That just says it all. And everybody is jealous of what you get to do every single day. And Chief and I feel really strongly that we are here to enable you, to support you to be at your best. So we are very privileged to have this opportunity, and I'll tell you, we take it very, very seriously. So thanks for everything that all of you do to make our mission happen. We know there's a lot of uncertainty that this pandemic brings, and I'll tell you, Chief and I have been really impressed by how you've been approaching it. Your ingenuity, your figuring out new ways of getting the job done, and just flexibility. It requires the best in all of us to figure out how do we get the job done, stay connected with our teams, even though we're socially distant. And I don't know if you can tell, but I can't reach Chief. He's greater than 6 feet away, I promise. So turning to my priorities, I have 3. And they're pretty simple, and you might have heard about 1 or 2 of them even before today. And I promise I'll release it formally next week, probably. But I'll let you in on the secret on what they are. And it's accelerate our Science and Technology 2030 strategy, That's one. It's one AFRL 2 services that is supporting our United States Space Force and their success. And 3, it's leading the best AFRL team. That's all of us. That's the professionals that do the functional jobs that we have, and our scientists, engineers, our team of teams that really help get the job done. The reason we felt that these were the 3 most important priorities for us is because we have an ever-evolving, changing world. You know, the warfighter needs us now more than ever. We have a daunting competition with a peer adversary coming in front of us, and honestly, they're looking to overtake us as an S&T superpower. And so we're looking to up our game, to accelerate innovation, to win the war in space, and ensure that we have the best AFRL team that we can. And I know that you are all up for this challenge and excited about what the future brings. So I hope you have some questions about what these priorities are, and I look forward to answering them. And I wanted to mention one other thing before I pass the mic over to Chief. I hope you'll listen for the whole hour, because at the end of our discussion today, I'm saving this for the very end, but I have 3 books to recommend, 2 requests to make of all of you who are watching out there, and I have one very special announcement to make. Chief, over to you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And what an honor it is to be here with you guys today and to be doing this live stream. I will say that communication is the key, right? And to communicate your intent and priorities, ma'am, is just awesome. So let me first start by saying, no making fun of the chief. I did have some dental surgery just done the day before yesterday that I'm still recovering from. So my speech might be a little slurred. I might spit on you a little bit, but it's good that we're doing this virtually, that's for sure. So no making fun of me. But I would just like to say that, you know, thank you for tuning into this, to hearing what General Pringle has to say. It's been an honor, like I said, to be serving as your command chief. Obviously, we have gone through some disruptive times over this past year since 2020 arrived. And like any organization that's going to survive disruptive times and that is also going to strive during disruptive times, we need communication. So I'm thankful that we can hear from your questions, hear about what's going on. And these disruptive times are just another thing that we get to flourish through and get to shine through disruptive times. So thank you for all being here. I look forward to your questions, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Glad you're here, Chief. Even though you had the dental surgery, we're glad to have you here. Thanks.
Thank you,
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you both for those very inspiring words to open things up. So to start things off, we want to let everyone know that the questions sent in, we did group together for continuity. So if you hear a theme there, that's why. So starting off with the first question we received. General Pringle, the past few months have been extremely challenging due to COVID-19. The pandemic has impacted our mission and has changed the way we do business today and into the future. Can you talk about the AFRL response to COVID-19 and what you're most proud of, and where do we go from here?
Boy, there's a lot to be proud of in how AFRL responded to the COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, this all occurred before I got here, and it's continued even now. So one of the first things that I know you have all done was to adjust our work practices. And our first priority is the safety, health, and well-being of our folks, of our team, and of our families. And so the first thing we did was adjust our work schedules, and we figured out how to conduct our work in new and different ways with appropriate socially distanced opportunities, and we figured out how to get the job done in a distributed manner. So we've been able to rely on new tools and new collaborative technologies to get the job done. So I'll say that's what I'm most proud of, is how each of you has responded. But there's a lot more to brag about for AFRL and all the great things that you have done in response to this pandemic. And I'll mention just two. Our DPA 3 team, Defense Production Act 3 team, has done a phenomenal job in supporting the industrial base and ensuring that funds flow to keep our industrial base strong and thriving. They've done a phenomenal job with about $500 million executed in an incredible 10 weeks, and making sure that our industry is going to be strong for the not only through this pandemic, but afterward as well. And a quick shout out to the Epi Lab, that's part of our 711th wing, and they've been conducting and assessing all the samples across the DoD to see who has the virus and who does not. As you can imagine, that's a really important job, and they've smoothed their processes, they've upped their game and gotten a lot of samples through, almost 2,000 to 3,000 a day, and they're leading DoD, as is our DPA team as well.
Wonderful. The next question we have is, I understand there is new information about flexible work hours and telework for employees who are having to manage their children's school situations this fall due to COVID-19. Can you elaborate on what this entails and how it affects AFRL employees?
Absolutely, and I think this is another area to brag about, and the flexible work hours was already in effect. It was being worked as a pilot prior to the COVID pandemic, and then as soon as COVID arrived, it was just implemented in full force. So I'll tell you, this is something that is going to continue with or without the virus. So it's here to stay, but it's a good thing. And what it allows is you to work with your management in figuring out how can you balance work and life in a home environment. What hours make the most sense, what schedule makes the most sense to meet both of these areas. And so you can do things like take your kids to school, or sit with them and do their homework if they're doing virtual school, and have these windows of time where you are dedicated to work or dedicated to home. And it allows you the maximum flexibility that you need in a given day.
Right, and I think this also sets up, if you don't mind, ma'am, this also sets up, because every situation is going to be different. And there is no doubt that our people are our most important resource that we have. And so we need to make sure that we're allowing you to be able to do your work, to do the things you need to do, but also take care of home life, right? There's a lot of stress during this time, and we get that. And so this is an effort to alleviate some of that stress and make sure that we cover all the bases when it comes to supporting our workforce so that they can support their job and their family.
So let us know how it's going, if it's working for you, and if you want us to keep going with these kinds of initiatives.
It's wonderful to see how much support we have both in the office and at home. It's very inspiring. And a follow-up question to that is, how much longer are we going to be in a predominantly teleworking situation?
Do you want to take that, Chief?
Well, this might be the new normal, right? I mean, there's a good chance that we will be teleworking, and that General Bunch has made it clear that AFMC is going to lead the way and make sure that we as an AFRL can telework when we need to. And so it doesn't matter how long this COVID lasts and this disruption lasts. We're going to overcome, and we're going to make sure that we allow you the best opportunity and the best times that work for you and your family, and make sure that we get the job done. So I think really, I don't know how long it's going to be, but I think that we shouldn't expect to go back to pre-COVID times. Some of us will be teleworking, and we've learned so much this last 6 to 8 months. So I think we're going to put that into play, and we're going to just keep pressing on. Yeah.
I think we're going to come out of this stronger than how we went in. And frankly, it's all thanks to you and making it all work, making the best out of the situations that we have.
So you did touch on it in that response, Chief Arnold. Do you see that AFRL is going to continue with increased telework even after COVID-19 subsides?
Yes, Kenneth, I think that we will be in increased telework even after COVID subsides. I'm sure that we will have some that come back to work out of the offices and work out of your workspace on the bases or wherever you are. But ultimately, we've learned a lot out of this, and we've learned to be more efficient in some ways, and we're taking the lessons learned and we're going to put those into play even after COVID. So once we get through this, absolutely, we'll probably continue to telework at least some and not go back to the way it was.
And General Pringle, what should I do if I feel like my office or a team member is not following COVID-19 return to work guidelines, putting me at extra risk for infection? What do I do if it's my supervisor?
What do you do if it's your supervisor? That's a tough question, right? So as Chief Arnold said, we want to make sure that we have the safest, healthiest workforce environment. And so we do want you to make us better and to speak up and speak out. And so if it's a colleague or a supervisor, we want you to say something right then and there to have them wear their masks, because we know that masks help prevent the spread of the COVID virus. And if that doesn't work, then tell somebody else, tell the next person up in the chain. And I know that they will take care of business, because taking care of you is what we're here to do.
Yes, ma'am. And as a leadership team, number one rule 101 in leadership is to make sure we provide you a safe, healthy, professional work environment. And if you don't feel that that's what you have, then you need to up-channel that.
General Pringle, we now have some team members in the home, or some at home and some in the office. The in-office team members do not have access to reliable Wi-Fi to connect to some of our virtual meetings hosted outside of AFRL teams. Is AFRL taking steps to modernize our facilities?
Absolutely, Kenneth. Thank you for the good question. So for all of AFRL, as you know, we have access to zoom.gov, and that is an enterprise solution that helps everyone. We also have increased capacity for MS Teams, and that allows us to connect virtually as well. And then another example of how we're improving facilities is here in the headquarters. We have increased access to Wi-Fi throughout the building, and I know there are lots of buildings around this location and others that are improving their access to Wi-Fi.
Moving ahead, how's AFRL's implementation of the 2030 S&T strategy affected by the United States Space Force transfers? What is the current status of the implementation?
Thanks, Kenneth. Chief, if you don't mind, I'll take that one. So we're really excited to be one AFRL supporting two services. What a phenomenal opportunity. And I'll say it's not just our Space Vehicles Directorate. It's all of us have a role in this, whether you're doing human performance or information dominance or materials or weapons or anything that we do, contracting and budget and finance. Every single one of us should be thinking about how we support the United States Space Force, our newest sister service, and how we're going to win in space. So this falls very nicely with the department's Science and Technology 2030 plan. Because this is a department level plan, it talks about game-changing technologies across the entire research laboratory. And as all of you know well, General Bunch's famous quote, "A technology doesn't know its application until we tell it." So there are lots of opportunities for us to support the United States Space Force. Bringing it home just a little more specifically to what we are doing in terms of mission people and facilities, the Secretary designated a particular plan to make this transfer effective before the end of September of this year. And we've already been doing a lot of work to make this happen, to execute the plan and ensure that we reach her goal. This includes the transfer of billets. But of course, this is going to be seamless to all of you watching today. It's probably more like a name tape change than anything else. It should be seamless, and you're still going to be doing the very important missions that you're doing today. But I'll tell you, there's one new position that we haven't had before that will help us support our newest sister service. And that's the assignment of a deputy TEO to me. And what that individual will do is take an enterprise look at everything going on in AFRL and connect all those dots for the United States Space Force and be that single focal point for our sister service to come in and engage and interact and set priorities so that we can achieve what that warfighter needs to succeed in that domain. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot more to do, but I'm really excited to have you all on the team and thinking about how we can achieve these goals.
Following up with that, General Pringle, what are some of the ways that the Science and Technology 2030 strategy, what ways are they being implemented, as in significant steps that have been taken?
And no surprise, thanks Kenneth, that there's a lot going on here too. And I'll tell you, AFRL, you're running so fast, I can hardly keep up. I really can't, you know. You're running like Bryce, I think. I'll be catching up to you every day that I'm here, and I love it, I love it, I love it. But I'll give you a few examples of how we're implementing this. And one of the very exciting events that's ongoing is WarTech. This is warfighter and technologists coming together to focus on some transformational capabilities and deciding which ones are the best candidates to achieve Vanguard status and to start to execute as Vanguards. So we have WarTech, our very first WarTech, occurring next week, and we're really excited about this. And on the outset, we're going to see how many of those Vanguards are going to be going forward. And as you know, we already have 3 that are doing extremely well today. We have Skyborg, we have Golden Horde, and we have NTS-3. That's a navigational technology satellite, and very exciting how they're working on new navigation technologies for the LEO constellation. So this has been an exciting example of how we're making progress in a very rapid fashion to achieve our 2030 plan. There are a lot of other elements, but I'm sure we'll get to those in a minute.
So you touched on Vanguards, and we had a question following up with that. How are new Vanguards going to be rolled out, and how are they, or what is the process of those rollouts, and how are they being announced?
Thank you, Kenneth. So I think WarTech is one of those great examples for how we will announce our Vanguards and what we'll be executing as a Vanguard program. So we're about to do that in a week. But ultimately, when we have Vanguards, this is a partnership. It's not just AFRL. It's a partnership between the Program Executive Office as well as our scientists and engineers coming together and working out those schedules, those announcements, and linking closely with the warfighters to make sure that we execute them on a very aggressive timeline. These are important to our Department of the Air Force, and so it's an all-in effort.
So, General Pringle, a question for you. There's been a lot of talk about AFRL's role in the stand-up of the U.S. Space Force. What is the status of AFRL transfer positions to the USSF, and when will it be complete?
Very good question, Kenneth. So, and very important. I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, the Secretary gave us explicit guidance that she wants the transfer to be complete by the end of September. And I think it was the 23rd of September. And so we're marching to that timeline, and we're taking a lot of actions already to identify the appropriate billets, what's going over, to identify the appropriate program elements, that is in terms of dollars, and what transitions to the Space Force and what stays as part of the Air Force. But regardless of that, we'll be working together every step of the way, and we'll be executing hand in hand so that it is seamless to the folks that make the transfer and that it doesn't impact what you do each and every day. Chief, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I was just going to say, ma'am, I think you hit them all. But you shouldn't expect, if you're part of that group, you shouldn't expect any real change. I mean, you're going to, like the commander said, you may have a name tape change, but your chain of command will stay the same. Your pay should not be affected. All these things. So obviously flexibility. We will see and we'll refine how we do this as we move down the line. But at first that you should see no real changes, and then we'll move and adapt as we progress on and figure out the goods and the bads of what the change that we made.
And the bottom line is the Chief of Staff of the Air Force and the Chief of Space Operations have said, no matter what, we will do no harm. Right. And so that's the bottom line. We will do no harm, and we are going to take care of you. And that's our job, and we take it very seriously.
So speaking on these changes, how will AFRL operate now that it supports both the United States Air Force and the United States Space Force?
That's a good question. Chief, do you want to take the hard one there?
So, Kenneth, can you repeat that question, please?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
The question was, how will AFRL operate now that it supports both the United States Air Force and the United States Space Force?
I'll start, Chief. That's okay. Not fair. So, the same way we have been operating for years and years. You guys are awesome. You don't need to change what you are doing. You're doing great. Keep doing all that great stuff. We are going to focus on how we can meet the needs of the United States Space Force. We are going to align our priorities with what they're doing. And we might be doing some new and different things. We've been adapting as an organization for years. So this kind of an adaptation is just another way of doing business. We're accelerating innovation. We're accelerating how we're supporting the United States Space Force. But I have full faith and confidence in all of you in getting this job done.
There is no doubt that we have amazing people. And there's no doubt that there's no job that's too tough and nothing that we can't accomplish. So we've been supporting the Space Force for decades, obviously. But now we're just going to refine what that means, and we're going to center in and just go in a little deeper and figure out what is it that we can do to support our Space Force, and what is it we can do to make sure that we can control space and win the war if a war ever happens in the space domain.
Well, Chief, I'll tell you, I think our AFRL workforce is going to do better at supporting the United States Space Force than you and I did in answering that question.
You both did great. That was very well spoken through. And a follow-up to that, General Pringle, is who decides research priorities and funding going forward?
Is that for the United States Space Force, Kenneth, or is that just writ large?
So this would be going with the United States Space Force and kind of how we operate with them.
So the United States Space Force has its own budget, and they get to set their own priorities. Major General Cotter is the CTIO, the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer. And I have already partnered with her and set up a regular battle rhythm to engage with her and understand from her perspective what are the Space Force priorities? And what I anticipate happening is that this will be a continuous conversation, not only at my level, but at every level in AFRL to get the job done. So this will be at the directorate level, at the bench level, and throughout. So we're no strangers to having our science and technology meet the priorities of the warfighter, and this is just another example, but we need to do it with a renewed emphasis, because as a sister service, that is a completely different connotation that doesn't have to be underlying the Air Force's priorities. They are unique, independent, and so we will support both of those separately.
And with that, do you think that AFRL will be split in order to support both the Air Force and the Space Force?
That's a really great question, Kenneth, and no. The answer is no, that the United States Space Force sees the value in one AFRL supporting two services, and I think that's really goodness. It does get back to General Bunch's statement about technology not knowing its application until we tell it. We have so many great capabilities and concepts and research ongoing throughout the lab. It would really be a disadvantage to any service if we broke off part of it. The goodness is in us being all together, working on these innovative solutions, and then applying it to all domains or wherever it fits best.
And moving ahead, we are now welcoming a new member to the AFRL family, AFWorks. We wanted to see if you could discuss or elaborate on this move and what this means that they're part of AFRL now.
Thanks, Kenneth. AFWorks, wow, how exciting to have the number 16 in the world most innovative organization, according to Fast Company, as part of the Air Force Research Lab. Congratulations, AFWorks. What a huge accomplishment in such a short time that you've been around. We couldn't be prouder to have you as part of our family. Welcome to the family. But we are excited to support you. We are excited to learn from you. And by the way, AFWorks, we think you're going to learn from us as well. We have long-standing relationships with academia that will only help you do your mission better. We have credible, very talented, world-class functional professionals. We have world-class scientists and engineers that can lend a lot of rigor to the processes that you are energizing with industry and non-traditional groups that we haven't been connected to in the past. So we're thrilled to have you on our team, and we're looking forward to doing bigger and better things with you on our side.
And I'd like to add to that, because I'll tell you, I'm excited about that, about having AFWorks as part of the family. I remember my first visit out to AFWorks about 1.5 years ago, and I remember turning to the boss and saying, why don't they wear an AFRL patch? Why aren't they part of our AFRL family? This looks like would be the perfect marriage to have them as part of us. And so I'm so thrilled to have that innovative team and that in their thought process and their the things that they've been doing for the last few years, and to be able to utilize them even better as an AFRL team member.
Hold on to your hat. It's going to be a lot of fun.
There it is.
So that's wonderful. And moving to the next section of questions, one of the most important aspects you've spoken about both today is the people that make up AFRL. And we had a lot of questions from them and kind of surrounding what it is to be in the enterprise. So this next question goes out to both of you to see how best to answer. We have seen a lot of negativity in social media with regard to diversity, politics, COVID, etc. And many airmen are engaging in social media to be part of this conversation. What guidance can we provide them?
Well, do you want to take that, Chief?
Well, I can
Go
start,
ahead.
ma'am. So what I would say is that social media is is great, right? I mean, there's a lot of great things that are happening today on social media, and there's a lot of great things, a great way to get out the message, get out what's going on. And I just loved, obviously, the little kid videos and the cat videos that my wife loves to show me on the different Facebooks and things like that. But ultimately, you know, we do have to guard ourselves a little bit when it comes to social media and what we're doing. We're in times, right, where we're talking about diversity, and we're talking about racial injustice, we're talking about political things going on, obviously, with the voting this fall or this winter. And so we have to remember that we do work for the Department of Defense, and that we wear a uniform, whether you wear a uniform that looks like ours or you wear one that looks like a suit and tie or a t-shirt, right? You're part of the Department of Defense, and so there are some rules that we have to abide by. We have to make sure that we aren't, that we are accountable for our actions. We're accountable for the things that we put out there and the words that we say, especially on social media, because they're captured forever, and they may never go away. So I would say just be careful. You have every right to say and think what you want to think and say what you want to say. But I'd say you have to also remember that you do work for the Department of Defense, and that we do have to guard our words, and that we do have to be leaders.
Well, Chief, that's really excellent points there. There's so much that we can get out of social media, and particularly in a COVID environment where we are physically distanced, that connection through some kind of medium is even more important. But you're right, we have to do it right. We are part of the Department of the Air Force. Heck, we're part of AFRL, and we're proud of it. Let's be professional. Let's put our best foot forward. Let's live our core values: integrity, service, and excellence in all we do. So if it doesn't align with those core values, then we shouldn't be doing it. And I think anything that would detract from AFRL's image and professionalism and all the great work that you do each and every day, I wouldn't do it. As Chief said, it's not worth it. We hold ourselves to a higher standard because we are serving our nation. We're so lucky to have this opportunity. Let's make the most of it and not sully it.
And just one more thing. You're all leaders, and if you don't think you're a leader, just walk out and go to a Walmart, or go to a place where there's folks, and see how many people come up and say thank you for your service if you wear this uniform. But even if you don't, and people know that you work for the government, they look to you for leadership. They're looking to you, and so you want to represent that leadership, right? You want to represent the organization. You want to represent our values and our core values. So just know that when you're out and about, and when you're speaking on social media, you are representing more than just yourself. You're representing the Air Force, quite honestly, and the Space Force now as well.
General Pringle, there's been a lot of talk about talent management, hiring, and workforce improvements at AFRL. Can you elaborate on some of these things that are intended to improve AFRL in these areas?
Absolutely, Kenneth. Thank you. This aligns with my third priority, lead the best AFRL team, and there's a lot that we can do in this area. So one of the things that we can do is improve or enhance our digital enterprise and data analytics. I think that one lesson we've learned from the COVID-19 pandemic is we rely on technology to keep us connected, to get the job done, and to communicate our message. It's very important for a collaborative enterprise like science, technology, and innovation to have these tools available. So that's one aspect of making it better for our workforce. Another aspect is having these conversations about diversity and how that will help us strengthen our team. It will help us communicate better with each other. It will help us learn about the challenges that our workforce faces. from a variety of different groups out there. And it will even help us do our mission of innovation. You know, there are a lot of studies out there that say a heterogeneous, diverse workforce is able to innovate more. So I see this as a mission imperative in addition to being a people imperative. You might have also been asking about how can we help the workforce with some of their challenges in COVID as well. And I talked a little bit about the flexible work schedule earlier and how we're going to adapt throughout the day. We're going to adapt work schedules so that you can balance your work and your home responsibilities. And I'll tell you, next Monday, we're going to meet with all the supervisors and we're going to talk about a whole slew of workforce initiatives that will be coming out that our Mr. Blackhurst has been ushering through AFRL for quite a long time, and I know he's super excited about rolling out these initiatives next Monday, and they come into effect shortly thereafter. Did you want to add anything, Chief?
No, ma'am. I think you hit them all.
So this goes out to both of you as well. There's been a lot going on in our country and in the Air Force recently regarding diversity and racial bias. Can you offer some insight on how AFRL is responding to this issue?
That's a really important issue to address. And so the first thing I want to say is that racism will not be tolerated. Discrimination will not be tolerated. And hostile, toxic work environments will not be tolerated. I wish I could say that AFRL is completely immune to these human issues and human challenges that we face, but we're not perfect and we have room to improve. So what Chief and I have been doing, even since day one that I've been in the seat, is we've been having some conversations with a wide variety of folks throughout AFRL. It's been eye-opening, it's been a learning experience for both of us, and I'm really appreciative of the honesty that we've been hearing from our workforce and the desire to make AFRL stronger, to make AFRL better, and to work through these issues and find ways of taking baby steps so that we are able to reduce the barriers that prevent our success going forward. So, in fact, just this morning, I had a great discussion with some HBCUs who are interested in partnering with AFRL on our small business innovative research contracts, and that was a lot of fun, and it was ushered by a great team who's interested in increasing our engagement with underserved populations. And I'll tell you, that's just one step, but we're going to be doing so much more. We're going to continue having these difficult conversations, and through that together, we will take the steps necessary to bring down those barriers and allow everybody to work at their best, fullest capacity possible. As Chief said earlier, we owe you a professional, healthy work environment, and we are very dedicated to that.
That's right. Yes, ma'am. And also, I'd just say that, you know, we know our people, again, that is why we exist, is because of just the smart, innovative, intellectual people that we have. And it doesn't matter where you work in AFRL, if you're out in a technical directorate or if you're in a functional directorate, we appreciate your input. We appreciate what you have to say. We appreciate your feedback. And it doesn't matter what you look like, what you sound like me right now. It doesn't matter. It matters about treating everybody equally. It matters that we do live those golden rules, right? Treat others the way you want to be treated, and that you love your neighbor like yourself. And so we owe that to you guys, and we appreciate what you do each and every day. So thank you.
We have so much going on here at AFRL, so many wonderful things to accomplish. Let's find the way to team together so that everybody has that same awesome, amazing experience that we know is possible. I've heard this feedback from all of you, and I know that's going to continue going forward.
There's no doubt that we have smart people. No doubt, but there's no doubt that you put 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of those heads together and we're even smarter and even more innovative. And when we get people that don't look like us, don't come from the same background that we come from, don't have the same experiences that we've had in our lives, that makes the diversity and the ingenuity and the innovativeness just that much stronger. So thank you for what you're doing. And keep having those conversations. That was the last thing I wanted to say. Is just, I know those are tough conversations to have, but what I find is the more that we talk about it, the easier it is to talk about it. Not that it makes it any more right, the things that have gone on in our world, but it becomes an easier thing to talk about when we just talk about it more. So break out of your comfort zone a little, share some of your experiences, and talk about some of the things that are going on, not just in our nation, but also in our work centers.
Thank you both for those powerful words to really ruminate and think about, or think on. So, Chief Arnold, as the enlisted leader of the AFRL, what are you seeing as the most pressing enlisted issues across AFRL, AFMC, and the Air Force? And what is being done to address these?
Well, thanks, Kenneth. I will tell you that there's a lot of change, right? I've been in the Air Force for 28 years, and I will tell you the Air Force has changed a lot. And so there's constant change going on. And I will say we're always trying to make it a little bit better, always trying to do things a little bit better. And there's no different in the enlisted world as well. So there, obviously, this week, you may have seen the announcement. We had a new Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force announced, Chief Master Sergeant Joanne Bass, who is I've worked with many times in the past, and looking forward to seeing what she has for our enlisted force for the future. And just looking to get on board and help her out and help get things moving in the right direction. But the enlisted force, we've had a lot of change go on, whether it be the promotion system. So we've gone to a more of a board scored promotion system versus a how well can you test and how many points do you have for the longevity of your service and stuff like that. So we've gone to more of allowing a board to evaluate our folks, which I think will allow the right people to be promoted. Speaking on promotions, this next week, Monday or Tuesday next week, is our public release for Tech Sergeant. So exciting that we will hear our new Tech Sergeants out of AFRL. I'm sure we'll have quite a few that come out of the different work centers. So thank you for supporting them and doing great things. There's also things that we're doing in the uniform world. We are working on a new PT uniform, so to make the PT uniform more comfortable to wear, more breathable, things like that. We're testing, and AFMC is leading the way in testing new uniforms when it comes to PT uniform. We're now just implemented a new regulation to allow women to wear pants in their mess dress. So that was something of the past where we couldn't do. But obviously, that's a needed change, and it was something that we did to make sure that we changed for that. Also, for female pilots, we're changing the uniform, the flight suits, so that female pilots can have more comfortable uniforms. So there's lots of change going on. It is constant, and it's always making it better. So what I would say, any ideas that you have that would help to make our Air Force better, bring them up, because we will get those to the right people so that they can hear what change needs to be made. And if you think change isn't being made from our lowest level airmen out there, I have plenty of examples of where they are. So thanks, Kenneth.
Of course, that was a wonderful response. Very well spoken, so a lot of inspiration for the enlisted force out there. General Pringle, a question for you. What do you see as the lab's greatest challenges over the next year?
Oh, thanks, Kenneth. What I see as the greatest challenges for the lab over the next year, well, maybe what keeps me up at night, it has to do with are we working together in the best way possible to solve the operational challenges that our warfighters face. That's the bottom line. Are we approaching the science, technology, and innovation in the best way possible? Are we taking the necessary steps? I know we've got the world-class team here to get it done, and so I just think a lot about how we get the job done and what else could we be doing. How can I help you more? How can I reduce the barriers? How can I listen to your ideas better? I love how Chief was just talking about all the changes that are ongoing. It's not a bad thing. Getting that new PT uniform is going to be a lot quieter out there on the track. And the underlying message there is that we are listening, and I think for me over the next year it will be, am I listening enough? And I hope that you won't hesitate to tell the Chief and I what's on your mind, to tell the Chief and I or your leadership how we can make AFRL better, because that's exactly why we are here.
Can I answer that one as well, Ken? If you don't mind, ma'am. I will tell you, talking about what keeps you up at night and making sure that we're doing the right thing for our Air Force and our AFRL. Resilience comes to mind. And obviously, like I said at the very beginning, this is a disruptive time, right? And there's a lot of stress, I know, on our folks. And so what I would say is make sure that you're talking, make sure that you're figuring out what it is you need, what it is we can do to support you, because ultimately we want you to be able to adapt and overcome. We want you to be able to be at your best, to strive for excellence. We want you to be happy to come work for AFRL, right? We want you to be happy that you're doing what you're doing. And so, but we don't know what we don't know, right? And we want to hear from you. So make sure that you're speaking up whenever things aren't going the way you think they should, and let us help define things, let us help get the message out, let us help lead and make sure that you have the work environment that you need, because ultimately resilience in this time where we have a lot going on, and I can just go down the list and probably take up the whole time listing all the different things that we have going on that makes things a little complicated right now. But ultimately we will get through this. We're leading the Air Force through much of this diversity or much of this disruptiveness. And so just appreciate what each and every person does. And like the General said, reach out. If there are things that we can help you with, if there's things that, that you don't think are going right, or if you think are going right in your work center and you think, hey, I think the rest of the Air Force needs to know about what we're doing here, reach out and let us know, because we're always wanting to make it better.
And the final question we have for today, it was sent in by one of our listeners. So this one's for General Pringle. I read a recent article about Skyborg that quoted you and General White, the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. What is the relationship between AFRL and LCMC regarding vanguards?
Oh, that's a good question, AFRL person who sent that in while watching. Don't think it was my dad. So what is it that we're doing as a TEO-PEO team to make this, to make vanguards happen? So I'll tell you, the meeting I had just prior to coming here to have this time with you, which is going to be the best part of my entire day, I promise you. I was talking with General Collins, who's down in Florida, and we were having a meeting on Golden Horde and what is the schedule going forward, how is it progressing, how is the team coming together to achieve those goals. So on Skyborg, that's just another example of the PEO-TEO relationship. So we have regular meetings, our teams are connected at the bench level to get the job done, and they mutually decide what are the next steps to take, what are the best technologies to pursue, and we make these decisions together, and they're not in isolation. It's not a handoff. It's not a throw over the fence from one to the other. It's moving forward as an integrated team It's kind of getting the science and technology closer to the acquisition, and it's bringing the acquisition closer to the science and technology. So we're right there at that uncomfortable edge of cooperation and collaboration, and frankly, it's going great. We're learning a lot from each other, and it makes us a better department of the Air Force because, of course, we have 2 vanguards that support the Air Force and 1 that supports the Space Force, and it's only going to make us better, especially on these accelerated transition timelines, and it gets that capability in the warfighter's hands that much faster. Thanks, Kenneth. And Observer.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for sending in your questions. And now that we have wrapped up the questions segment, we open up to both of you for your closing statements here for the live stream.
Well,
Chief, why don't you go?
Absolutely. So I love the way you put that, ma'am, at the end there about building relationships. And when I think about all the relationships that I've built in my 28 years in the Air Force, and I think about LCMC and AFMC and all these different people that we have to build relationships with, and I will tell you that it's the relationships in my career that will last, right? It's the relationships that I've built with folks in AFRL and throughout the Air Force that seem to last the test of time. And so I have 3 brothers, and I think of LCMC like one of my brothers. They will give me the feedback I need when I need it, right? But I will tell you, it's usually what I need when I need it, and they're the ones that will give me that feedback. So when you build those relationships with folks, you get that kind of feedback, right? You get what you need to hear, not necessarily always what you want to hear. But it will make you better in the long run. So I appreciate people like LCMC, the folks over at LCMC, and I appreciate my peers and the folks that have helped me and mentored me throughout my career and helped me through life, quite honestly. And so I'd just like to say thank you for everybody participating. I thank you for the good questions that we got. I just say look out for one another. Make sure that you're listening and building those relationships right there in your own backyards. Listen to one another. Hear what each other has to say because we are an incredible organization. This is definitely the highlight of my career these last 1.5 to 2 years for me. It's just been a highlight. This has been an amazing ride. I am blown away in amazement on what you do and how you do it each and every day. I told you on Pringle, every time I walk into an organization and hear the new things that you're doing, I go, the Air Force is doing what? I can't believe some of the things that you guys do each and every day, and the support that we have to do it throughout every organization, every TD that I go to and every FD that I go to. You guys are awesome. And so just keep up the great work. Keep those good questions coming. Don't let this be where you cut it off. We are, like General Bunch likes to say, squinting with our ears. I'm going to squint with my ears. And so I want to hear from you, and I want to hear how we can help you and how we can make our Air Force and our Space Force and our Air Force Research Lab better. Over to you.
Thanks, Chief. And you know who's got my back in giving me the honest feedback, and that's you. And I really appreciate that you do that for me and for all of us. That's the best thing about Chief Arnold, is he's going to give you the unvarnished, awesome truth and exactly what we need to hear. But I do want to say thank you all for being here today and joining us, because it is all about you. You guys are absolutely eye-watering, awe-inspiring, amazing. Every one of you, no matter what you are doing. Chief and I are beginning to meet all of you. I'm continuing to do my immersions and get out there, but I tell you, every single day, every single minute, it's just awesome to hear all those great things. So keep it coming. Keep doing what you're doing. Let us know how Chief and I can help, and that absolutely is why we're here. That's why your leadership is here, and we take our jobs really seriously. I told you at the beginning I had 3 books, 2 requests, and 1 announcement. So let's see. 3 books that I'm reading, have read, or I really think are interesting for the times that we have today. The first I like to recommend is Go Giver by John Mann. And this is about a little business principle, and it kind of turns the idea of being a go-getter, where you're aggressive in pursuing the next task, into being a go-giver, where you're taking care of your team, you're looking out for others, and everybody is coming with you. It's a short little book. I think you'll find it inspiring, and it will let you think about your teams in new and different ways. The second book, I'm not quite done with it. I'm still listening to it, but I really like it. It's Daniel Pink's book called Drive. And this is about what motivates people. And it talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And when I think of AFRL and all the great people in it and the great things that you do, this book really speaks to me. Talks about how can we be more creative, what motivates us to be more creative, to be more innovative, and want to pursue it for the idea of discovering truth. Wow, that's exactly what you do each and every day. So that's the second book. And the third book is John Cotter's Accelerate. As you know, we are in a time of rapid change, but that's no different from before. We've been through change before. We're going to be going through change for a time in the future. But I recommend this book to think about how can our organization best manage this change and best achieve it. So those are my 3 books. My 2 requests. Okay, so the first one has to do with looking out for your teammates or someone new who has joined your team. If you would please reach out virtually, because we are socially distanced, and just say thank you. I tell you, I am so grateful for the PA team and for Kenneth for setting up today so we could have a conversation and listen to what's on your mind. We have Nick and Lito and Jeremy who set up this amazing room, and the technology. They make it happen each and every day. But that's my request, is that you will reach out to somebody in AFRL, particularly if there's someone new to our team, and just say how much you appreciate what they do. Chief, I appreciate you being here even after your dental surgery. That's a lot to ask.
Thank you, ma'am.
The second request that I have is I just started listening to Kenneth's podcast called Lab Life, and it's pretty interesting and funny. So if you would download that, it's family friendly. I think that's worth your time. Last thing is one announcement, but it's kind of a non-announcement. Next week, we're going to announce the AFRL Fellows. I am so excited to do this. Wow. If you know what AFRL Fellows are, this is truly going to spark the imaginative fire. These are people who have long-standing, credible, rigorous, peer-reviewed, nationally recognized records of science and technology excellence. This is a tradition that has been part of AFRL that we haven't changed since 1987, Chief. And I am really looking forward to honoring the fellows in our rollout next week. So stay tuned for that, because I want you to be able to go up to them and tell them, congratulations, well done, and hopefully keep up the great work, because we love having you on our team. So that's all I have for you, Kenneth. Thanks for letting me have these last parting words, but I'm so excited to be part of this team. Thank you for letting me lead you on this journey. 2020 has been an amazing year. We've got a little bit more to go, but I know 2021 is going to be even better, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you.
And you've given some very well-deserved praise to the workforce, to the teams that made this happen, but really, let's point it back to you. Thank you both for joining us today, speaking to the AFRL Enterprise, and for what you do every day. So from me and everyone else, General Pringle and Chief Arnold, this was amazing. And for everyone out there, after this live stream concludes, you'll be able to watch this video whenever you wish. It'll be on the AFRL Facebook channel. And after that is done, we'll make sure if there's any questions that weren't addressed or you feel weren't answered, we'll reach out with the AFRL Public Affairs team to address that the best we can. So thank you all for viewing, and have a wonderful day.